It's a Cardinals Victory Monday, and I have a bite-sized episode with a special guest for you. Stay tuned.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast with Kelly Singh.
Murray keeps it downfield. It is caught. It is caught. DeAndre Hopkins. Miraculous. It's Murray magic.
The sickest Arizona Cardinals podcast. It's gonna be sick.
Welcome to the sickest Arizona Cardinals podcast. I'm your host, Kelly Singh, and it is a Victory Monday. Today, I have friend of the podcast, Cardinals beat reporter Donnie Druin joining the show. I'm going to bring him in right now. Donnie Druin, Cardinals beat reporter at SI.com. Thank you so much for joining me this morning. How was your weekend?
Very busy, very, very busy. The fact that the Cardinals and the Suns both went down to a one possession game as time expired. Definitely busy, but that's why we love sports, right?
That is why we love sports. And for those of you who don't know, Donnie is also the reporter for the Suns. At one point, I'm like, are you going to cover the Diamondbacks too? And you're like, no way.
No. I thought football was a grind, and then I started doing basketball, and basketball is a grind. I have so much respect for people who cover baseball on a daily basis because I absolutely could not do that.
It's a lot of work and they overlap. So kudos to you for keeping up. But I mean, today we're here to talk about Victory Monday. Wow, is it ever so sweet being a divisional game nonetheless? But what is it? I don't even know. What is the word on the street, even amongst yourselves in the reporter group? Like, how is everybody processing this today?
I think there's a lot of shock. I think if you go back to how the Cardinals had looked last week against a Commanders team who I feel confident would lose to the 49ers at this point in time, or maybe not after what we watched this past Sunday. But, that was definitely the worst loss of the Jonathan Gannon era. And, you hear Gannon every week in his press conferences talk about how, they want to keep trusting the process. They want to keep evolving. They want to keep growing. They're not panicking. And it's very easy to say that and, just to keep saying it and have it be lip service. It's another thing to actually go through with it. And to be 2-0 in the NFC West, to be 2-3, as opposed to being 1-4 or 0-5 through 5 weeks of football. I think given the injuries that have happened to this roster, I think given just the overall construction of the roster, I think that's very commendable. And you're asking like, what's the feeling? What's the process? I can't speak for a lot of other media members. I don't even want to speak for myself right now. I'll speak for the Cardinals players. They're saying, we effing told you so, because all week they have said, we're going to bounce back. We're going to be fine. Everybody in the media is doubting us. We're almost dead last in all the NFL power rankings. Just watch. They marched into San Francisco. It wasn't convincing, but wins and losses are ultimately the only thing that matters in the NFL, and they walked out with a win.
They walked out with a win, and you're right. That is all that matters. However, I would say it's the defense that has really been stealing the show all season long. Maybe not all season long. There was a really rough spot, but the defense, I feel like, has been super clutch. And was it last week's game or the game before? I'm getting them all confused now, but I feel like the staff was down on the defense, and the rest of us were like, "What are you talking about? The defense pretty much like saved this game. The defense has been on point, and we have people to your point that have been injured, and now we're gonna have some of those coming back, or some of them have come back. How clutch has the defense been in your mind?"
Yeah, I'm not sure if clutch would be the word to describe it. I still think there's a lot of holes on this defense. It is most definitely the weak point on this team. But what I will say is that they shut out the Detroit Lions in the second half of their game in week 3. Obviously, the Commanders game was such a nightmare start to finish. But to be able to shut teams like the Lions and the 49ers out, both very, very well respected offenses. Ben Johnson, Kyle Shanahan leading both of those teams, and very, very talented guys on that side of the ball, skill position, lineman, whatever it may be. To be able to do that, um, that's not a mistake. That's not a coincidence. Like there's something there. There's something there. I attribute that a lot to the second half adjustments made by guys like Nick Rallis and Jonathan Gannon. Um, there's still some very much needed help in the secondary and in the front seven. The run defense isn't exactly inspiring either. But what people wanted to see, Kelly, from year one to year two under Jonathan Gannon was not just competing in some of these games. Oh man, they almost had it, but sure, they fought hard. No, it's time to start winning some of
Right.
these games. That's what people want to see. Show us progress. Show us that you're actually going to start building towards something in the future. And that's exactly what happened because so many times during these close games, Kelly, it comes down to whether or not your team can make the big plays, right? What we saw in week 5, the Cardinals made the big plays. They were able to convert the field goal after having one blocked with just under 2 minutes left. Kyler Murray made that very, very clutch fourth down pass to Marvin Harrison Jr. The defense stumped up big time with Jalen Thompson sacking Brock Purdy, forcing a ball up in the air, and Kaiser White coming down underneath it. Big plays create big circumstances. And I think if you're the Cardinals, you have been missing that for a very, very long time. And even if it's just one week, even if they go to Green Bay next week and just get absolutely blown off, you saw it's there. You saw they are capable of pulling away in the clutch fashion. And I think that's very, very important moving forward in year two of this rebuild.
That was a very fair analysis for sure. And I think I was referencing the Lions game now that you mentioned it. And that loss was brutal for sure. But how could we necessarily fault the defense in a game like that? Like as a viewer of the game, being at the game, I'm like, man, these guys are playing their hearts out. They're playing their guts out. They're getting sacks. They're getting interceptions. What more can we ask of them to do in a game like this? So I think that's where I was coming at it. But you're right. There are plenty of holes to be filled still. And the offense is absolutely holding its own. Kyler Murray has had some pretty magical moments. Last week, you touched on last week a little bit. He had 3 rushing yards, and people were really, really upset about this. Not even just from a fantasy perspective or a sports betting perspective, but as a viewer, how does that happen? And have you heard that come up at all in any of the press meetings?
Yeah, no, absolutely. That was a very big talking point for guys such as offensive coordinator Drew Petzing and head coach Jonathan Gannon. Even Kyler Murray was himself asked about it during his press conference, and the overall sentiment was, um, you want to get him involved with the legs, but like that's not something that's cognizant. That's not in the game plan of, oh, we need Kyler to run, right? Because there's a lot of sometimes risk associated with having your quarterback go out there and run. You've seen it a little bit with guys like Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson sometimes. I think the Cardinals want to have that healthy balance of having Kyler make explosive plays with his legs, but also at the same time having him still be a threat as a passer too. That being said, I absolutely believe that the Cardinals needed to get him a little bit more involved in the running game. And I think Murray took that on himself. I think a lot of the plays were either designed quarterback reads or quarterback options, and he read a defensive end crashing down on James Conner, understandably so, because Conner is a beast back there in the backfield. Yep. And I think we saw what Kyler Murray can do, and that's just taking what the defense can give you, not forcing anything on the ground. But whenever those opportunities do open up, you see the speed, you see the athleticism, you saw the flashes of why he was the number one pick. And I think if they just sprinkle that a little bit in week to week, I think they'll be just fine.
Me too. And I think we saw that this week. As I mentioned, here we are, Victory Monday. We're all celebrating. I didn't even know how to go about this because I'm still a little bit like, oh my gosh, I can't believe we won against the 49ers. That's so exciting. But Kyle Brandt over there at Good Morning Football has said publicly and held up a little sign saying the Cardinals are a playoff bound team. Are you on that train?
I don't think so. I would not be upset as somebody who wants to cover a playoff game. I would not be upset at all. I'm definitely rooting for all of the guys in the locker room. It's been really cool getting to know them and establishing those relationships the last couple of years. But They need to find a consistency for me. And, you don't want to peak very early in the season. You want to kind of gradually find your groove as the season goes on. So you're hitting your stride towards the end of the year. But to be fair, Kelly, this is a very tough stretch of football for the
Yeah.
Cardinals to go through. I think if you had told me they would be 2-3 through 5 weeks of football, I probably would have taken that. Granted, I don't think you would have lost to the Commanders and beat the 49ers, but it's the NFL. It's the world's greatest reality TV show for a reason. I think they're capable of making themselves into a potential postseason contender late in the season, but will they get to the postseason? I think we're just a year too early from that.
All right. Well, I'm holding out for a wild card just because I think wild card sounds fun. I'm a wild card.
For sure.
Donnie, thank you so much for your time today. What are you working on? Where should the people find you? What are you doing?
Just find me on the app known as X, formerly Twitter, at Donnie Druin, and find a work at si.com/NFL/Cardinals.
And that's about it. Thanks so much for tuning in. We'll see you again later this week as we look ahead to week 6.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast with Kelly Singh on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.